Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. After this very, very productive, knowledgeable inauguration session, now we are setting the tone for the conference theme. And theme is creating more polymaths, the new leaders. So we had some absolutely brilliant speakers in the inaugural session who spoke at length about polymaths, but this particular session is actually possibly the most important session of the day and setting the tone for the entire art of polymath. So with me I've got some brilliant people, Professor Ajay Kumar Roy, Professor IIT Kharagpur, Mr. Anindo Ghosh, Global Marketing Leader, Pfizer and Watson, Health Leader, Cognitive Business Decision Support, IBM India, Mr. Paul Walsh, MBE, member of British Empire, Managing Trustee and founder of Jungle Crows, and of course our very own Dr. Suman Mukherjee, Director General Bhabanipur Education Society College, economist and very revered teacher to all of us. So this particular session we have got people from the industry, person from academia, and of course Paul Walsh, who is going to put in a very different perspective about this new trend in education and next generation of polymath. So I think I'll start off with IBM. I'll start with Mr. Anindo Ghosh, who has been...
Of me and I learn. Benjamin Franklin. Extremely important tenets as we discuss this concept of polymathy. But even before we go out there, I think one of the things that we should think through is, so we have actually heard a lot of eminent speakers talk about polymathy, which has kind of come through the ages. The Renaissance, and by the way, we didn't touch upon the fact that the ancient Indian rishis and munis were also polymaths. So polymaths has existed in our society for a long, long time. It has been like a wave, gone up and come down, right? What's happened in the 20th century, that polymathy kind of went a bit out of circulation, right? So if we kind of go back a bit into the history, so we see that the 20th century was defined by the industrialization era. So what does that mean? Industrialization means mass production. And mass production means give me people with the 3 R's. Typically when we talk the 3 R's, who can read, write, and do a bit of arithmetic. I will instruct them, they will go and do this. I don't need them to think. I need them to mass produce, right? That was the education system which came up in the 20th century. So over time, what had happened was, and also we also know that content, teaching content, was not that freely available, right? So teachers had a huge hand in deciding what should I be teaching my students to read, write, and do basic arithmetic for the industrialization era, right? Where I am creating maybe factory workers, or later on, not to belittle the term, programmers or coders, not much to think, just go and do it. Doers, not thinkers. The education was kind of highly bounded and confined within schools. So education will come from schools and come from teachers. It's a boundary, right? You come out of formal education, then you join the corporate field. But then, do you have an interaction before that? Maybe not. Because I want to confine my education with content which I feel is adequate to basically give my students the basic skills of reading, writing, and doing arithmetic, or maybe a bit more, not much more. What happens with this kind of education? Students are getting ready for a society that demands certain skills of them. Are we maximizing, or as a student, am I maximizing what I am good at? Maybe not. Somebody has told me I have to be a doctor and an engineer. That's the best thing to do. So, I am bored. I want to complete my 16 years of formal education and somehow get a job, earn money. After that, do I really want to study further? I don't know. The system in my school has not really made me want to study further because what I have learned is probably a bit by compulsion, a bit by force. So here we are creating people who are bounded in the thought process, bounded in, this is my job. Outside this boundary, it's not my job, somebody else is going to go and do it. Don't ask me to do that. That's the kind of thought process which this education at times can bring. Now, cut to the 21st century. Content freely available. I, as a teacher, cannot bound my students to read only my textbooks. They can go on to Google and can really find out a lot of things about a lot of things about a lot of things. So the role of the teacher, especially in the higher classes, obviously in the primary classes, you've got to teach them, you've got to tell them, right? But I think, we talked about this. It has to be more of an exchange. It has to be more of facilitation. So the role of the teacher is changing. Second, the learning, and this is important, and this is something where I will bring a bit of my experience of what within IBM, I'm doing with a lot of the educational institutes. The role of the school is expanding beyond just the school. Bring in the corporates, bring in the Indian government. Let the students learn in a wider ecosystem, not only within the school. One of the amazing initiatives, and I'm kind of fortunate to be part of that, is the Atal Tinkering Labs. A lot of you would have heard about that, the Atal Innovation Mission of the Government of India. A few corporates are partnering with the Government of India and various schools in the country to bring a forum where students from various schools in the country have a platform where they can bring their innovation, and it keeps going stage by stage. And finally, these students are being made to interact with certain government officials, people in the corporate. There are mentors from corporates who actually teach them what it means to solve problems in the real world using multidisciplines and just not through your textbooks, right? Fortunately, I have been, one of those mentors, and I've kind of seen how the system works firsthand. Something else that some of the education institutes are trying to do with the corporates, it's a very innovative concept. The success of this has still not been proven, but it's something like this. And there are cases, for example, I can talk to you about NIT Nimrana, who came to IBM and said that, you know what, you have a problem that you want to solve. So let's say white-collar crime in India is increasing by leaps and bounds. We want to detect white-collar crime at the source, or predict at the source so that we can kind of try and stop some of that. It's a real-world problem which the Indian industry faces today. Now the question is, which is great, we'd be working on some great algorithms, data science and AI algorithms, within IBM. But then the institute comes and tells us, you know what? Hold on. Can we create a course, specialized course, where we select certain types of students who will go through a 2-year program to try and solve some of these things? And what could happen is, you IBM, you give him a job offer, we give him an offer to enter the university, so he's both part of the university and part of the corporate. 6 months he spends on our campus, where we give the student all the formal education. 6 months he spends out there in your campus trying to solve the problem. He comes back, bringing that experience, goes through another 6 months of education, and then goes back to the corporate before he's completely absorbed within the company. So you're trying to create a system, an educational system, which is so deeply ingrained with real-world problems that you don't care after a point whether you want to use AI or virtual reality. It doesn't matter. The point is you want to solve that problem through whatever disciplines make sense. Multidisciplinary approach, right? Whatever makes sense. Common sense, which many a times goes out of our system in today's education. Couple of things, as we talk about polymathy. Personalized evaluation. Not everybody is meant for maths. I could be a great sports person, so what? Can't I be a sports person? That's one. You learn very well through visual cues. I learn through experiential or kinesthetic cues. Maybe Professor Bose learns through auditory cues. Can I create an education system which brings all of these together and creates one immersive learning? One size doesn't fit all. So let's think about it. Why is this important? We all know that it has already begun and it's going to take on even bigger proportions. The routine tasks of the 20th century, for which we had devised that formal education, right, which makes students to read, write, and do the basic arithmetic, they'll probably be gone. They are already going. Automation is taking away those jobs. So what do? We human beings, we have to graduate, we have to upskill. But the moment you ask me to upskill, I, who am part of that education system, I feel, oh my God, again? I have not been trained, or my mind has not been opened up to the continual lifelong learning paradigm. I have been told, learn a few things, get this degree, and you're done. Excellent, you'll be doing great in life. But that's not what it is. The paradigm is to change. So we need to change to a new education paradigm to create a new set of students and candidates who think differently, who would want to apply, maybe a doctor and engineer's roles can merge. We just talked about it. For example, if I learn music, I probably also need to learn science. There's a science in music. The Sare Gama Padhani, so there is science in that. I cannot divorce science from music. Here comes the multiple disciplines. I need to look at them together, not as separate disciplines, right? That's a thought process change. It's a mindset change. And that will come as the education system changes. So I think, Dr. Bose, I just thought, I'll make a few points, some learnings from the industry. I would be really interested to, hear, some of the other panel members.
That's excellent. Anindya, you have set a tone and immersive learning integrated, and I think Professor Shoykot wanted to give the example of an doctor and engineering skill merging in the inauguration session. I'll come to one of the leading academia in the country, Professor Ajay Roy, and will ask what are your views on this polymathy?
Can I go there?
Yes.
A very good morning to all of you. At the outset, let me thank BCCI for organizing this very important seminar. And as I understand, possibly the whole idea behind organizing this seminar is to look into a very simple and a single problem. That is, whether in the academic curriculum we can introduce some changes so that the students, number one, can have a much better analytic mind. Number two, whether the students can have a very clear idea about the interdisciplinariness of the various domains of human activities today. And third, how it can be done. Unfortunately, it's a fact that in this country, or maybe that in the larger part of the world, globe, we always stop at the third point, how it can be done. So before going into my own views on this, let me tell one of the most important problems which Mr. Walsh has just pointed out, and that is, there was no term like polymath in the pre-Renaissance period. Now, during the Renaissance period, the subjects used to be more and more specialized. So that was the time, maybe in the latter part of Renaissance, 17th century, more from 18th century, things were becoming more and more specialized. When more body of knowledge were being gathered in every area of science, technology, humanities. So interestingly now, the point that comes is, in all the countries, it's not only in India that rishis were polymaths. Throughout the history of intellect, throughout the world, there was no concept of, not much, of generally specialization. Now, this is also not correct, because as you all know that, okay, even in our system in India, কামার যারা তারা কামারেরই কাজ করত, কুমোর যারা they were making all those কুমোরের কাজ করত, কামাররা কিন্তু কখনো কুমোরদের কাজ করত না. So in general, the society was divided into, the professions were divided into the specific domain of their expertise. But then, it is important today, polymathy is important today because of only one fact, and that is that one must have a very clear and a bigger picture of whatever is coming tomorrow. Only specialized ideas will not help our movement in 21st century. Now, so far as the point of having a change in our curriculum so that we can have more of interdisciplinariness in our understanding, it is very important to note that the curriculum, those who are making, number one point is it's very important. In 2009, when I joined as Vice Chancellor of BESU, and then before joining, I went through the website, and I found that the university had at least one expertise, that is conducting elections. I found in the website how to conduct students' union election. I went through that, and it was perfect. Secondly, how to conduct teachers' union election. Absolutely perfect. And coming from IIT, I never knew that there can be so many complications in organizing an election. Students' election, if two contestants, if there is any, if they don't see eye to eye, or if there's any kind of conflict, how to resolve those conflicts. I found that in the modern operating systems, one possibly could make use of many of the conflict resolution, systems that our people have done. So when I joined, I thought that it's a beautiful, at least in some areas they have got huge expertise. So instead of the students' union, the first thing I told them that no students' union, rather you make it a center for creative expressions. Polymathy is important to really make the student's mind creative. I still remember that the then Vice Chancellor, the Chancellor, our Honorable Governor was Mr. Gopal Gandhi. So I went to him and he said that, Professor Rai, how to take care of these students' union conflicts in. I said that, look, instead of students' union, let there be a student center for creative expressions and liberal arts, because only engineering cannot flourish. So technology and arts, they should go hand in hand. And that will really help them in a better understanding of the integration of diverse areas of knowledge. I still remember Mr. Gopal Gandhi, he was so happy, he said, excellent. So he was our chancellor of all the universities. So he immediately gave a nod that yes, you go ahead, but don't expect any money from the government, because government don't have money for starting any liberal arts courses. So I would suggest that liberal arts part you remove, because you won't get any money, not even a single paisa for that. Anyway, so there I told the students that, look, the importance of, is very interesting, the importance of understanding other disciplines. There was within 2 months, there was a students' cultural program, Rebecca. And everybody told me that on that occasion, the two groups will again have a big conflict, because these students' unions, they fight with each other. I didn't know about all those things before joining. So I went to one of the hostels. There were one group of students, and then whole night I still remember that I sat with them so that they can not, come to that venue and create problems. And then I told them that you are all from different disciplines. Now let's see that how to make a smart home. Can any one individual engineering or science or medical discipline make a smart home? So I remember that for 4 hours, it started at 9 o'clock at night. Bombay night was going on in the main venue. Now, if I leave these boys, they will go there, and then there will be 2 groups clashes. 2009, I was very new to the university. And for 4 hours, we discussed about the utility of interdisciplinariness and creatively, because each of you are experts in one area. Civil engineers, they are experts in how to make the construction. So many different diverse disciplines, how to merge them together. The question that Mr. Ghosh had raised is the following. One is there any way of creating really, genuinely an innovative mind or not? The answer is yes, in my opinion. This is a very serious issue. In general, we teach the students to think in a linear way. And all of us, we are accustomed to thinking in a linear way. The problems and the complex problems of 21st century really cannot be solved with linear way of thinking. What is needed is to start thinking in a non-linear fashion. And there comes that is it possible to create an analytical mind which can think non-linearly? The answer is again yes. I cannot naturally discuss. So just in such kinds of a session, it's not possible to discuss anything in even slightest detail, because so many speakers are there. But I think that time has come when the academia and the industries, they must come together, and then they should think about the solutions in a more comprehensive way. The third important thing is, unless we do it, we will always be back. And the third important thing of this interdisciplinariness, in fact, in IIT Kharagpur, we always take pride that whatever we do in IIT Kharagpur, the rest of the institutions have followed it. There's absolutely not much of exaggeration in that. So in 2001, during our Golden Jubilee celebration, we decided to start the first school in India which was known as School of Medical Science and Technology. So how to integrate medical science and the engineering science. So it was a big job. Somehow I was in charge of head of that school till I joined B College, Shibpur. And again, after joining back IIT Kharagpur, I have been looking at that thing. Now, how medicine and engineering and science and architecture, all of them can be merged together to truly have the modern day healthcare system. It was a wonderful, I can tell that these 5-6 years was the best part of my learning, because nothing. Right from the school level, what we have done is, we have made a system so the students are not only not encouraged, but they are punished if they ask the questions. And it's so bad that when they come to the colleges, after a certain lecture is over, there's no question. So in IITs, I made a rule that, okay, in my class, there will be marks for asking questions. And at the end of the class, I used to tell them that you must ask me questions. If you don't ask, then I will ask you questions. So it's better that, okay, you ask me questions. Not that forcefully you ask the questions, but then it is very important, if you just see that from time immemorial, asking question was an integral part of education, whether it's in Greece or in India or in Persia. Everywhere, asking questions, so which is not done today. And through that asking questions, for example, a very important question that can be raised right now is why polymath is required. Why it is at all required? Why BCCI is organizing such a conference? We have got the expertise in each of the areas, very, narrow bandwidth as we call, and very high gain. And then each of them, if they sit together, then we can solve a bigger problem. So the whole idea of everybody should not only be expert in his own domain, but they also must have a slightly bigger domain in which they should have enough of understanding. Just two more interesting things. A very popular story that the father and the son goes to the jungle with a tent. Mother says that don't go there are a lot of animals, tigers and all. But father and son, they are determined that they will spend a full moon night in the jungle. So both of them, they take a tent, they go. Father had presented the son a book on all celestial bodies. The son has read that this is this star, that is that star. So at night, at 2 o'clock, the father gets up and tells the son, "Hey, please you get up." So son gets up at dead of night. So he said that, "What can you see? What do you see on top?" The son looks at the sky. The son says, "That is, I think, Cyrus." So father says, "Stupid boy, can't you see that? How could you see that star? Somebody has stolen our whole camp. Because if it's not stolen, how could you see that star? It was a complete tent." So interestingly, you become so much bogged down with your own area of interest, and today's situation, it really commands that you should also have a peripheral kind of a knowledge on other disciplines as well. And that really helps in making polymath, on which Tagore long back had written, "Chitta jetha bhayashunno uchcho jetha shir, gyan jetha mukto jetha griher prachir, apono prangano tole divasho sarbori, বসুধারে রাখে নাই খণ্ড ক্ষুদ্র করি. We have divided, subdivided more and more and more of specialization. But the whole domain of knowledge, Gyan, it is never bisected, it is never partitioned. Gyan, knowledge space is continuous and there is absolutely no separation between them. And Tagore says that let my father take us to that point where, among other things in the poem, Gyan will be unseparated. Thank you very much. I wish that this would be a great thing.
Thanks, Professor Roy, in his own imitable style. So we first heard about polymath as a principle, as a subject from Mr. Anindya Ghosh, and then we heard about the academic side of polymath, and you are absolutely right. We need to prepare our next generation leader on the basics and then move on to the polymath, like the basic creativity. Asking question is a very, very important, and giving them more options to choose for what they want to do for their life. And before I come to somebody who will tell a little bit about an option, it's a very interesting story by one of the guru of the modern education technology, Sir Ken Robinson, who said about a girl who is a little bit of a fidgety character, can't concentrate on studies, and the mother takes the girl to a doctor, psychologist, and the psychologist asks the mother to go out and wait for half an hour. And after half an hour, the psychologist calls the mother, and you can see there's radios on, and the girl is dancing to the music. And the doctor said, your daughter is not fidgety, she is a dancer. Take her to a dance school. And today, she leads one of the world's largest dance school, best over 26 countries in Europe. So we need to really think beyond the linearity which Professor Roy said. We have to be non-linear in character before we really go into polymath. So next in my panel is Paul Walsh. Paul's been a career diplomat, worked for British Deputy High Commissioner for many years in many countries. The last posting was in Calcutta, and then he decided that enough of foreign service, enough of stamping visas and questioning and interrogating people, why you want to go to UK, etc. And so he opened what is now possibly the biggest rugby revolution in the country, Jungle Crow and Khelo Rugby. So from diplomatic service, from a very cushy job in fact, to coming to the Maidan and playing with hundreds and thousands of kids, not just in Calcutta, but in many locations in India, and then leading and coaching a team from KISS in Bhubaneswar, taking them to UK and winning the World Cup for these girls under 16, was it? Under 14. But it's a huge thing for Paul. And for those who don't know, there is a Bollywood movie now made on his life, which is called Jungle Cry, will be released next month.
No, it will be released in August.
Released in August, where it's been played by Abhay Deol. So that's Paul Walsh for you. Something about polymath, Paul's.
Thank you, Dr. Bose, for embarrassing me and telling people about my stories. Yes, so just a quick pitch. Jungle Cry, August, September, starring Abhay Deol. All pre-purchase your tickets now. I'm going to start with a quote. So we've had quite a lot of quotes this morning, and I've been lucky enough to get a different quote that nobody's already used, and try and talk about what that quote means and how it perhaps relates to the subject today, which is talking about polymaths. And in fact, in the session, it's also talking about new leaders. So, very famous quote. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. If I have seen further, It is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And depending on your age and where you're from, most of you with a high polymathy spectrum will know that that's most famous as a quote from Isaac Newton. Younger members of the audience might also know it as an Oasis album, excellent album, really great band if you ever get the chance to listen to them. But when I was asked to speak here, I was thinking about what I would talk about, what I would say, and I wanted to find perhaps an analogy for polymathy. And I felt that quote, which can be interpreted in many ways, was a good analogy. And in fact, the idea of standing on the shoulders of giants is a 12th century concept. So it goes back further than Isaac Newton. And it actually comes from the very real practice of standing on the shoulder of a tall person so you can see further. But it was also an analogy, and it was an analogy of the schools at the time. In the 12th century, these new cathedral schools had been started in the UK, and they were felt to be something special, to be delivering an education that had a different quality. And if we look back in history, so this is the 1100s, that they were considered to be unusual, to be different, to deliver a high quality. And one of the reasons for that was because they moved away from a clearly defined routine. So the routine of the school was different. It would change every day, it would involve different subjects. And in a way, that's what we're talking about today, that idea in education that we're appealing to the different senses, the different requirements of each young person. And I see that every day. I work with, as Dr. Bose mentioned in the introduction, I work with hundreds of children who are interested in sport, whose motivation comes from playing games, playing the game of rugby in the case of the children, most of the children I work with. And it's incredible to see how once you can find that incredible motivator, then other things can come along. My own story is that I was never motivated at school. I never enjoyed school. The day I walked out of school was one of the happiest days of my life. Sorry, educationalists in the room. I'm not sure why I should be at an education conference, really. But I felt that the idea of these giants, and when I read that quote, and I kind of thought about that quote, I thought, who are the giants of today? Whose shoulders can I stand on to see further, to achieve more? And those giants are the young people, the innovative people, the people that are making changes, are disrupting society. And we all need to have those people. And those people, invariably, are polymaths. And we're all living, and we're all changing, and we're all looking and making solutions in modern society, often because of these people. We heard speakers this morning talk about Microsoft, Apple, and their founders, and how they are polymaths, and how we're all benefiting from their creations, their discoveries, their disruptions. And polymathy has become quite a popular thing in the last few years, this idea of it. Any of you who follow podcasts may have heard of a podcast called the Monkman and Siegel's Polymath Adventure. It's on BBC, well worth a listen. And these two characters, Monkman and Siegel, became famous as a result of their performance on University Challenge, a very famous, well-known quiz show in the UK that takes university students and absolutely grills them on some incredibly complicated questions, requiring them to have great knowledge. Bobby Siegel, one of the contestants and one of the characters on the podcast, is actually from Kerala and studied in the UK. So these are our new leaders. And if we look in the papers last few weeks, I think we're seeing the emergence of another incredible polymath, an incredible leader of a very young age. Greta Thunberg, she's created this environmental movement that has disrupted societies, that is disrupting schools, that is making us look again at the issues around the environment, environmental protection, and what we're doing with the earth. Young, with incredible knowledge, and with incredible leadership. A young person who has managed to create a movement across the world that is changing the way we look and consider, and hopefully the way we deal with issues. And to finish, another quote, this one a little bit more light-hearted, and I thought of it as the speakers were talking this morning, talking about wisdom, knowledge, learning, and it comes from a rugby player, somebody I'm very, very passionate about, support very much, and his quote is this, and he used it at a press conference, it's a little bit funny. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks. That's a great analogy, actually. And standing on the shoulder of that giant, you can see the bigger picture, of course. And I think I come to Professor Shuman Mukherjee, once again, very, very firm believer of polymaths and professor for a very long time. So, sir, if you can put in your words.
If you go to New York, on Chelsea, you'd find a Rubin Museum of Art. This was created by Donald Shelley Rubin in 1974. And he did this to stimulate learning, promote understanding, inspire connections to ideas and cultures. And in that, he has a section which is actually the Art of Himalayas in India. And there's an exhibition, A Lost Future, the otolith group. Otolith is a stone that you get in the heads of fishes. And just like the rings in a tree, if you bisect that stone, you get the rings to know how long the fish has lived in this world. The otolith group ran on one of the polymaths India has produced, Rabindranath Tagore, the legacy of Rabindranath. And in that it's written, I have found a world culture for the study of humanity, which is nowadays being numbered. And I want to make that place somewhere beyond the limits of nations and geography. There are no boundaries created by nations or geography. We are one human race. And how much do we understand of nature and cultures? One of the questions that was raised by Professor Ray is, why do we need polymath? In economics, we refer to, or in management, one of the worst things to happen is to keep your capacities unutilized. Your brain has two hemispheres, the right and the left. 90% of us use most of the left side of the brain, which is about reading, writing, comprehending, being objective. And this is what we actually stress on, even in subjects. The ability to be rational, to be scientific, to be able to compute. We forget the right side of the brain gives us the subjective elements of life, the psychology, the creativity, the emotions, the intuitiveness, the artisticness, the innovative ideas. It helps and comes from relaxation, meditation, visualization, where we learn to sing and play. So if you're using more of the left, you're creating excess capacity. A large part of your brain is not utilized. The cognitive mind is not the only part of it. Human consciousness is also the two other elements. The analytical elements which we overstress, thought, and what about emotions? How can you progress in society without getting to know one another, without emoting, without knowing literature? When you were in school or when we were in school, at my age, you learned Shakespeare, you learned Sharat Chandra, you learned Rabindranath. Sadly, they are being taken off your courses. And therefore, you have more skilled workers. You're able to claim that you're one of the top nations in the world. You're sending things to the moon, but you're also one of the most corrupt nations in the world. And that's for polymathy. Therefore, understanding. Therefore, the need to create leaders. Therefore, to have pictures of those people you live with. My grandfather had on his walls pictures of characters like Gandhi, Vidyasagar, Vivekananda. How many of you would have pictures of the present people on your walls? That tells you what's lacking. Again mentioned that he was bringing in medicine science in IIT. It's not too long back, although Alapun Bandyopadhyay did raise the issue of Leonardo da Vinci. Two of the very important elements of da Vinci was he was brilliant in architecture and equally brilliant in human anatomy. So if I were having his in center, I would have kept Leonardo da Vinci's model in front to say, here's the inspiration of a man that can take you forward. And the names that I mentioned, Vivekananda, not just his thought, but if you listen to the evening prayers at Belur Math, you'll get to know his power to control music and his ability to understand human feelings. He couldn't be having disciples like Sister Nivedita if you didn't be, by your birth and by your striving to be so, a polymath. How do you be a polymath? Not just to integrate this, but what's the process? There are 4 things that are involved. Capture new ideas. Give your smartphone to your school child, and you discover that the person is just not trying to maximize results and seek information that will score more marks in class, but will go into sites and seek knowledge that will perhaps enlighten us. There are interesting areas that you might just explore, like Baba Mail, that will tell you what are the good things about having haldi and what are the things you should not have when you have a problem. Now, why does it fascinate us to read those sections? Because it gives us a new idea. Engage in challenging tasks. Stimulate, and learn a foreign language at whatever age. Perhaps you'll stop amnesia. And also do creative data analysis, which very few of us do. Play a musical instrument, and that will perhaps tickle that side of the brain that you're keeping inactive. Broaden your knowledge. That's the 3rd step. Let a startup go into, and we visited, through Bengal Chamber of Commerce, we did visit England last year. And there are universities which are setting up aeronautical designs, normally to be visited by all children, where they are going to put you into labs to see whether you would make a champion as a tennis player or whether you should be opting to be a coach. There are limits in your physical self. We learnt it early in school. Sound mind requires a sound body. And that was known earlier. You cannot have a physical body which is weak. And Vivekananda therefore says that there are more lessons learnt on a football ground than in a classroom. Because you learn to lose, and you learn not to cheat, and you learn to take failure in your stride. You learn to shake hands with a person who's actually beaten you in the game. That's why sports is good, because it teaches you civility. It teaches you how to live together. And most important, interact with stimulating people and places. Coffee house adda, very important. You learn from others, different thought processes. You cannot get that in a television show. You cannot get it in your smartphone. It comes with human interaction. What creates the leader in you? David Rock talks about SCARF, which is a synonym, acronym if you like, on status. Use your responsibly, yourself in a more accountable manner. Status, watch the person who wields the power and use it for the betterment of others. Certainty, information should be your source of power, not just being your birthright. How informed are you? Autonomy, are you reluctant to delegate? If you don't delegate, you don't learn, because you learn from your subjects. Relatedness, look at the cliques that operate in every place, clubs, societies, offices. And fairness, are your decisions clean or opaque? Is it transparent or opaque? Yes, Rabindranath is often quoted, but one of the things that perhaps I'll end on is, he says, Tomaro Oshime prano mono loe joto dure amidhai. Oshim is not God. Oshim is about infinity, the search for infinity, which you take your body and soul to discover. That's pantheism. Discovery of self through yourself and within yourself. Therefore, activate every faculty, every nerve, every being that crosses your path. Because learning is not what you do with yourself, but learning is to accept the exposure without prejudice and create a sense of empathy. It makes a better human being out of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mukherjee. I mean, that was an excellent rendition. And a better human being, what better can be the tagline for the next generation leader than a better human being? We all agree that technology can give us everything, but better human being, I think, still is the biggest thing that anybody can expect. I'll just quickly come to Anindo before we wrap up, because of time constraints, and we'll ask to, I know he has got a couple of other points which maybe he can discuss before we go for this question answer.
Sure. So I think one of the points which I kind of probably missed out when I was talking is that when we, and I think we have kind of spoken about this, you know, in various forms. One is that it is not knowledge, but it's the application of knowledge, right? And to be able to apply your knowledge, there are a couple of things that, especially in the area of polymathy, we talk about. One is we are talking about the left-hand side of the brain and the right-hand side of the brain, kind of bringing the integration. And the other is building of skill sets, not purely for the purpose of building skill sets. The building of skill sets, and skills in this case, as we have talked about, is communication, the thought of solving complex problems, looking at everything end to end. So these are all skills. These were not thought of as skills in the 20th century education system, but these are becoming skills now. So let's think of them as skills. And when we are looking at academic programs, whatever way we design them, it could be the educational institutes, along with academia, along with the government, whatever we do, these are skills. These have to be ingrained, they have to be taught. And by the way, when I say taught, it's not a textbook chapter to be taught. It has to be a continual process of learning, because you learn a textbook chapter, you're going to forget the next day. It has to be part and parcel of the entire teaching. When it's a teaching process, I would say the entire academic process, because teaching at times can become very, very myopic. As I said, there are no teachers anymore. There are facilitators to learning, right? That is the way we need to look at our education system. So I think that is the point I wanted to make, Dr. Bose.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, so it's so interesting. I think the new set of job on Indo is going to come maybe in next 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, which we cannot even predict. I mean, a total new set of skill, as you said, new sales skill set. I mean, maybe 5 years back, a lot of guys were curious about YouTube, but now we have got a full clan of YouTuber. Now we have got a full clan of food bloggers who makes their bread and butter by blogging about food and making money. And even 5-10 years back, we never knew what a food blogger is all about, except they get some free lunches in a restaurant they write for. So the new generation, new set of jobs, which are not really jobs as in salaried job. It can be profession, it can be life skill, it can be anything that can bring them money and satisfaction is going to come. So we're going through very interesting times, very exciting times. So we have got time for a couple of questions. Can anyone take a microphone? Anybody who wants to ask a question? Could you just identify your name and somebody can take a microphone there? Yes, we have got somebody. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I am Torun Kumar De from Bhabha Atomic Research Center, VECC, Calcutta. And I did PhD from IIT Kharagpur. I know Ajay Rai very well, and he also knows me very well. I want to look at the polymathy from different angle. In the school days, my mother used to say, every day's work you should do it regularly. That means, I have written in my Facebook also, vacuum in learning is exceedingly or very bad situation. That means vacuum in learning is creating a problem. People are keeping teacher and thinking that he will give every knowledge to him. It is not possible. It is not possible. So vacuum in learning should be avoided right from childhood. So various purpose, entertainment, cricket, music, etc., etc. So if you divert yourself, then it is a big problem. And I put it in Facebook, some of the various small thing. I don't want to take much time, 3 to 4 minutes.
So you have a question for the panel?
Oh, yes, just 3 minutes. Okay, for me. So,
running out of time,
vacuum in learning is a very, very important point. And the word, I think you can see, no, you cannot see. The word began, Vishesh Gyan, knowledge, which needs to be acquired through deep thinking, processing and verifying again and again through analytical brain. Purpose of learning is to develop this analytical brain. This is the point where we should give maximum stress. This polymathy, actually I am electronics engineer, afterward I did PhD on image processing. So what happens, once this analytical brain is developed, then we are having internet, global library. Only change the subject a little bit, take the data, and one can really do polymath. In the old age, rishis, they had total subject is small, our brain capacity is small. So that way we cannot think of. So what I did in Bhabha Atomic Center, Variable Energy Cyclotron R&D I was doing, and repair is also along with that. Every time something fails, I say, you write down and next time you do it. So nobody was doing it. So every time I used to use my analytical brain and solve the problem. So Polymath, and after retirement, last 12 years, I am telling you, I had plenty of problems, medical problems. And the very big problem, 70 to 80% are having enlarged prostate. I have got it cured by myself. It is not possible by the doctor. I offered Ramakrishna Sarvastan, please make a team. I will get cured at least 90% of them. That means 90 crore. We are having population 130 crores. So I have to take help of allopathy, homeopathy, Ayurvedic, then food technology, everything. So we'll discuss every day and solve it. I was told I had gallbladder stone. Every day some small stones are getting formed and it is not possible to see through ultrasonography. So by that process, I have cured my gallbladder stone and I can give a guarantee with that knowledge, everybody will remain very good.
Thank you very much. That was not a question.
Now,
so
just one or two
we'll have
points,
other people.
polymathy.
We have other
So
people,
it
sir.
is
Please
all
excuse
right.
us.
Thank you, thank you.
Can someone take a mic to the gentleman on the right, please?
So, okay.
Thank you.
Hello,
Sir, please introduce yourself and ask the question to a particular panelist.
I'm Ramesh Sabu from Jute sector. Since morning, it's very interesting learning about different ways of education. This linear and non-linear learning. And Mr. Ghosh, he has said about the sandwich courses. During my training, I had been to the institute and also to the industry, which makes a very better understanding. And because whatever we learn in theory, we see in the practice, and that practice penetrates inside the mind. It's not a ratta technology that we, at the time of exam, we ratta marte, ratta marke, pass karte. That's a different thing. But this seeing is believing. When we see something, we learn something theory in the institute, and when we see on the industry floor or on the corporate, whatever is going on, that penetrates very well in the mind. Because picture or story, this penetrates much better in the mind. And whatever we learn, it should be a applied technology. It does not remain in the books, in the theory, but it should be...
So, sir, what's your question? Please ask the question.
I'm just supportive of Mr. Ghosh, what he has said, that the technology and whatever we learn is sandwich is a better one.
Okay, thank you very so much.
Sir, excuse me,
Now, we
excuse
have
me.
one last
Excuse me,
question.
sir.
We're running
Excuse
short
me.
of time.
Sir,
Okay,
yeah.
microphone.
Sir, myself, V.K. Agrawal from Sikshayatan Institute. My special point to Mr. Ghosh, as we gather from your conversation, that the traditional classroom teaching is going to be dispensed in near future. Then what will be challenges for education institute in the near future? Please say something. Thank you.
Okay, so let me kind of, make that a bit clear. I do not think traditional classroom teaching is going to be replaced very soon in the near future. What will happen is the nature of the classroom teaching will change. But I think as we heard from, I think one of the panelists in the morning, however much we inject virtual reality, AI, or other technology in our education, the face-to-face interaction, right, which is extremely important for both the right and left part of the brain, both kinds of learning, cannot be taken away completely. It's just that the format will change, but the classroom teaching. So, has it changed over the years? We had this Gurukul system, right, in the ancient, in the Vedic times. I don't think that has really changed. Maybe technology will aid, but the face-to-face will never go away. I don't believe so.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh.
Sir,
Last question.
last question from this side, sir.
No, last
Sir,
question here.
Just one valid question to Dr. Mukherjee and Professor Roy. I am Dr. Chakraborty from MCK Institute of Engineering. Last month we celebrated Einstein's birthday. I was reading the interaction with Rabindranath Tagore, and I found myself, Albert Einstein was a polymath, because the interaction of music and philosophy in the 5 discourses with Rabindranath Tagore made me understand that. This is my question. Was he really a polymath according to you, sir, Professor Roy and Professor Mukherjee? Albert Einstein,
Yes.
who is very much famous as a nuclear scientist.
Yeah, if you
One dimension only we know.
If you, Rabindranath Tagore and Einstein, they met 4 times, and all the 4 interactions have now come out in the form of a book. And if you go through all the discussions, you will find that both Rabindranath and Albert Einstein, possibly they were one of the best well-known polymaths, both of them. Because every line, both of them, they started with music, because that was their common area of, love. And then from music, they came to philosophy. That was also their common, interest, science. Then they started with a convergence to diverge. And each time, they diverged finally about the objective reality and the subjective understanding of the nature of the art of creation. Each of these things, they started with a convergence, then finally diverged. Diverged so much that again in the next discussion, it came in the same way. It's very interesting, and what you have said. And not only that, if you just see that in our country, even say Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose, imagine that in 1894, he was the first man to show to the whole world that in the millimetric wave, that is the microwave, he had generated electromagnetic wave, it was transmitted, and then he was the first to design one semiconductor-based detector. In our Presidency College, 1894, 95, 96. And within 6 years after Marconi, he discovered, and then the whole detector design J.C. Bose had given to Marconi. From 1900 onwards, he immediately, Oti Shachondesh Shate, he just came to another, there is the electrophysiology of plants. Now, all these things are important to understand, that how is it that a person who is the creator of the millimetric wave, microwave in the whole world, for the first time he did it, how could he switch over so elegantly from one area to a completely different area of electrophysiology? Not only that, he was a great writer, one of the greatest writers in Bengali, not so much possibly in English, and his literary talent was enormous. So he was a polymath. Going back to the whole point, if you just trace back the history of all these polymaths, a common question comes, that is, how did they become? Professor Mukherjee has made a mention about very important thing, Leonardo da Vinci. During that Renaissance time, they were all, and Da Vinci was one of the greatest polymaths, architecture to human anatomy to aeroplane to what not. He was it was a fantastic and an elegant integration of mechanical, architectural, art, beauty and form. And that was, Da Vinci. Just you go back and trace back their history, how these people were taught from their school days, and then how could they create a mind? After all, it's whole academic system, it must create a mind. This is the point that I always wanted to make. How that creation, whether there will be classroom teaching or there will be other forms of learning, that's not the major point. The point is whether the system really enables you to be creative. And if you are creative in one area, you are creative in other areas as well. Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose, his mother insisted that during his Pathshala days, he must mix with his father was a magistrate. He could send him to any good big school. But his mother insisted that he must go to the school যেখানে চাষার ছেলেরা থাকবে, কুমোর, কামার, সবার বাচ্চাদের সঙ্গে he must mix with them. So Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose in his writings he writes, one day one of my friends, he went to their house, his father was a farmer. So that small kid, class 3, so he said that, do you know that these plants, they have got life? So Jagadish Chandra said that, how can plants have life? You know, I have got a small plant, my father has, it's in a small, in front of my house, and every day morning I find that it is increasing. Anything that increases must have life. And he showed to Jagadish Chandra Bose, both of them, imagine class 3rd standard, class 3 students, they were in their own way of measurement, they were measuring how much the plant height is increasing. One of the greatest, and I should say the all-time greatest practical, experimental physicist of India, Jagadish Chandra Bose, from that time, they got the idea about how to correlate the whole concept of physiology and, the creation, the life, and also the living matter, and then how to really quantify them through measurement. And it's very interesting that these minds, at a later date, he had said that all my associations with all those Pathshala day friends, it was so handy and so important in development of my future day mind, and it really ensured that I had an analytic mind. So it's very important that early career, early life, from primary and school, these are absolutely important. And I don't think that anybody is here from primary or school level. We start at a slightly different point altogether. But then the whole human brain, as Professor Mukherjee was also mentioning, the two hemispheres, the brain development, everything takes place by the age of 13, 14, 15. Everything is done, and then it becomes a regular. Your experience, the more you experience, the cognitive part, about artificial intelligence, we talk about machine learning and all. Even the human learning is not yet understood in the proper way, that how we the human beings, how we learn. Lots of theories are coming up, how to correlate physiology with the learning, lots of other things. So interestingly, our whole basis of the discussion of BCCI, in my opinion, should be oriented towards how to create that kind of a mind from primary school, and if BCCI can take that kind of a lead, it will be a great thing. So anyway, thank you very much, and very pertinent question.
So we have to wrap up this session now because we are almost 20 minutes behind schedule. So thank you very much, panelists. But before we wrap up, one line from the IBM guy on Ghosh.
Thank you, Dr. Bose. I think, we have actually heard a lot about very eminent and famous polymaths for folks in the world. But one thing that I just wanted to leave you with is, we all in our daily lives do demonstrate elements of polymathy, if not the entire hog, but in bits and pieces. So it's not an esoteric concept. It's all within us. We can actually do it. That's it.
Thank you very much, and thank you, audience. And this was an incredible session. Thanks very much, panelists. Professor Roy, Anindya Ghosh, Paul Walsh, Sir Professor Mukherjee. thank you very much for being with us. It was most brilliant and set a tone for the rest of the day. Thank you very much for being with us.
We now have got a little task to perform. I would request the colleagues from my chamber to hand over a token of appreciation on behalf of the Chamber's Education Committee to our esteemed panelists. Would request Dr. Subarna Bosch to please hand over a token of appreciation to Professor Ajoy Roy. Thank you. To Mr. Anindo Ghosh. To Mr. Paul Walsh. And to Dr. Shumon Mukherjee. We will now request our panelists to please take their position along with the delegates here. And we will straight away start with our Leader Speak session. We are very happy to have amongst us Mr. Swami Shekhar, who is the CEO and co-founder of Vinimai AI Singapore. We are thankful to Swami for coming down from Singapore and sharing with us a small brief and session on immersive learning. Let's dive into the deep end. I would request my chamber colleagues to escort Mr. Swami Shekhar on the dais and would request the delegates to please take their seats. Those who want to talk to Professor Ajoy Roy can please take a side and let the next session continue. As you know, the weather condition is not so good, so we are in a bit of hurry to wrap up our session safely. So please help us in doing so. I request the delegates to be seated. Those who want to have interaction with our earlier panelists or speakers, request you to please take a side and do it and let the next session move on. Boys, if required, you can keep the chairs because I don't want to waste a single moment. I would request Mr. Swami Shekhar to please take up the dais. Thank you.